Welcome back to Stories and Cigars. I'm your host, Sammy Horowitz. I got a pretty great episode for you today. Today I'm going to be smoking a Padron Series 6000. Now, this would be considered a budget cigar. Padron is a phenomenal brand, but if you've gotten used to smoking Padrones or you know about this company, you might know about the 1926 or the 1964 or the other PB 97s, series, whatever, anniversaries, etc. They're very expensive cigars, typically made in Nicaragua. And this is like the budget portfolio, the 1000 series, they call it. But it's still supposed to be aged 2 years, the tobacco. It's a 5.5 inch by 52 ring gauge, I believe, and it's a pyramid or pyramide, however you say that, meaning the tip is pointy, right? And I just love this cigar, so I wanna review it and tell you guys and girls a good story. Padron's got an unmistakable flavor. Whether you're smoking the budget level or the very expensive, PB 97, 80th anniversary, whatever, they have a very specific taste. And that taste can be characterized by me as super rich, just well-aged tobacco. I mean, even the 6000, if you took the band off and told me this was a 1926, I'd probably believe you. And that's what's so crazy about advertising. These bands are so simple, and compared to the fancy bands, they don't look as good. But guess what? The cigar tastes great. Right off the bat, you got a good bite, like a peppery bite, but it's not unpleasant. It's very nice, actually. I want to talk about the 90s. I want to talk about the early 2000s. I want to talk about those times. And I thought about a place I spent a lot of time growing up. And, when I was a little kid, we lived outside of Cleveland, Ohio in the suburbs. And I'd like to think of that time as like, at the time I hated it, but looking back, it was a great time. And compared to where my life went, it was really awesome before we moved to Chicago. I mean, it was a really great time in my life. And even though a lot of fucked up shit happened during those years, I do long for those days. I had great friends and I had a lot of great experiences and some not so good experiences, which I'll tell you about. I spent quite a bit of time in the Cuyahoga County Juvenile Detention Center. Now, Cuyahoga County is Cleveland, Ohio. And Cleveland is a ghetto. The suburbs are nice. There's some not so nice suburbs, but by and large, Cleveland, the inner city, is the ghetto. And it's very impoverished and a lot of crime, and it's pretty fucked up. But that said, I found myself getting into quite a bit of trouble, being in and out of Cleveland. And I got arrested quite a lot, for a number of different things. But the time I'm going to tell you about was, I don't know, it might have been 98, 99. I like to think of it as the time that I became a man. And I say that because I got punked out a couple times when I was a kid, and I'm not proud of it. It makes me, what are you going to do? You're a kid, but I wasn't always a tough guy. I mean, look, I don't look at myself as a tough guy now. I've been through some tough shit, but I don't look at myself as a tough guy. I used to see myself as a tough guy, but these days I'm a square. And I'm just trying to get on with everybody and do my thing. But I like to bring people into my life and talk about some of those times that I had. And I remember a time when I was in Juvy in Cuyahoga County Juvenile Detention Center. And before my sister had punched me in the face. And I got to Juvy and I told people the cops beat me up because I was embarrassed. My sister gave me a black eye that morning. So when I got there and I got processed in, everybody was wondering why I had a big shiner. And I said, oh, man, the police whooped my ass, bro, but my sister punched me in the fucking face. So, and then, I remember I got punked out by a kid in Juvy, when I was, I don't know, 13, 14 years old, got smacked by a kid and I didn't do anything. And I felt like a punk. And it was a punk move back then. If you don't fight back, you're a punk. And that's how I felt. But I decided after that day that I was never going to be a punk again. I got out after that and I ended up getting rearrested. I got arrested for possession of I think the charge was technically CCW, carrying a concealed weapon. I got caught with a 38 snub nose, 5-shot revolver. Bought it off some guy. I don't know where I met the guy. Bought it for, I don't know, $80, $100, whatever it cost back then. I think I was popping it off or some dumb shit. I got arrested with the gun. I got charged with CCW, whatever, unlawful usage, whatever that crime was. I don't remember the exact crime that they give you back then, but I was in Juvy. Here I was. Now, let me tell you about how Juvy was back then. It was a fucking gladiator school. All right. It was a fucking hellscape because if you weren't fighting, you were getting taken advantage of. But tell you a story about a guy named Karate. So I remember being in the gym. We used to have rec. So the whole pod or deck, I think they called it a deck back then. It was a big empty room with cells where kids slept, but then it was so overcrowded they had little plastic beds, little canoes that they set outside, and that inside the main area where kids also slept on top of cots, on top of mattresses. So it was overstuffed, overpacked. You're in the day room all day, playing dominoes. Kids had dominoes. We were allowed to do that, play cards. You could shower. You could watch TV. They had speakers come in and talk to us sometimes. And then they'd bring us to rec. And rec was a gymnasium downstairs. Now, this was an old building. Now, look, Juvenile Detention in Cleveland at that time was on 22nd and Central. In the middle of the projects. I mean, literally outside was all project buildings. So if you got released, you're getting released into the projects. I mean, your family would come pick you up because you're a minor, but it was a pretty dangerous, terrible area. And you could look out the window and you could see everybody out there in the projects. It was a trip, but we would go to the recreation area to play basketball and things like that. And I wasn't really a basketball player, so I would just sit on the stage in the gym and watch as people played basketball, hang out. And I remember meeting, my arch nemesis at the time, and they called him Karate, right? Bigger than me, dark-skinned kid, had French braids coming down the side. I remember he was from like St. Clair and something, I don't know, like 105th and St. Clair, something like that. But he just didn't like me. You know what I mean? I remember him just trying to say little things to me, little comments to try to like rile me up. So I tried to avoid the guy, but I remember him kind of fucking with me that day in the gym. But it was the next morning when the shit kicked off. We went to chow. We went to the cafeteria that morning for breakfast. Breakfast, we'd all line up at the end of the room, and there was a, cafeteria-like setting. And I got my food, my cereal, which had the milk in it. And we sat down in the chow hall. The chow hall had a bunch of tables in it, and the staff members would walk up and down the aisles in between the tables, just making sure nobody was getting, into any mischief. Nobody was getting their food taken from them, shit like that. They were just making sure things were okay. The staff members would be walking up and down. I remember at that time, the staff members would wear like green polo shorts and khakis, and they were all pretty big guys. Well, Karate came up to me in the chow hall after I got my food, and he said, let me get that breakfast. And I'm like, nah, bro. I'm like, I'm not giving you my breakfast. He said, let me get that breakfast, white boy. I'm going to fuck your ass up when we get back up to the deck. I was scared. You know what I mean? I was scared. I was a young kid. I wasn't a very big kid back then. I hadn't yet came to Chicago. I hadn't yet gotten plugged and become a gang member. And the way I looked at it, like my nuts hadn't dropped yet, And, but I told him no. I said, I'm not giving you my food, bro. He said, that's your ass, motherfucker. He said, white boy, when we get back up to the fucking deck, I'm gonna fuck your ass up. And he sat across from me, right? So I'm sitting here at the table. Let's say this is the table. I got my food, I got my cereal. He had bumped my tray, so my cereal kind of spilled over, right? And I'm pissed off. I'm so mad. And other kids are there, right? They just saw that basically I got fucking punked. I didn't get punked out because I didn't give him my shit, but he's telling everybody in front of me that he's gonna fuck me up. So that's gonna happen because you can't say that and not do it. So I know that as soon as we get back up to the deck, this kid's gonna try to snake me, steal off me, whatever. And so I'm sitting there eating my cereal, adrenaline's pumping, nervous energy, butterflies in my stomach. The kids are looking at me because they're like, oh man, like it's going down when we get back up. Like they know something's gonna happen. You know what I mean? And I'm just terrified. First third of this baby, very nice, very strong, very smooth. And it's still got a real peppery flavor, real peppery. Peppery and rich tobacco. That's what I got for you right now. So back to the story. I'm sitting there, adrenaline just pumping. And I see this kid, if I'm at the table, okay, there's an aisle right next to me because I'm on the edge of the table. And then there's tables on the other side of the aisle. And he's one up and to the left, facing me, okay, at a four top. So there's 4 kids there, and he's on the outside facing me, eating his food, eating his cereal. And I'm telling myself, you got to do something. You got to fucking do something, Sammy. You can't let this kid punk you. You can't let him do it. And I was just building myself up. I'm just talking to myself in my head, man. You got to do it. You got to do something. Count to 10. Count to 10 and punch him. Count to 10 and punch him. And he's, I could see him kind of like just completely oblivious. Doesn't give a fuck about me because he knows that when he gets back up on the deck, he's going to do something. So he's talking to his homie, eating cereal, this and that. And I told myself, I go, just count to 3, stand up, and blast him with everything you got. So that's what I did. So I counted to 3. 3, 2, 1. And on 1, Karate took a big bite of cereal. And as soon as he took a big bite of cereal, I jumped up. Boom! And I hit him with everything I got. And when I hit him, I mean, it was fucking cinematic. The cereal just blasted onto the kid next to him out of his mouth. And I just kept punching. I hit him with everything I had. And he stood up, and I just kept on beating him. Bop, 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 bop. Now, back then, the staff members would fuck you up. So before I knew it, a guy had came and fucking tackled me away from karate, picked me up with another guy, and both of them literally carried me like a fucking log through the goddamn cafeteria and out the door. And they probably used my goddamn head for a fucking door opener. I don't really remember it, but it was rough. Now, back then, they had something in Juvy called the box, right? That was like the solitary confinement of CCJDC. It was 4 levels, this place. 4 levels of hell. The place had been open since who knows how long, 1920s, 1910s. I mean, this was a real shit box. They did all kinds of crazy shit there that I'll get into in another stories. But like, this place was decrepit, and they had these empty cells that they called the box. And all there was a concrete slab and a drain on the floor. There was no sink. There was no toilet. There was a concrete slab and a drain. And they would make you take off all your clothes. They'd let you leave on your tighty whities, and then they'd stick you in the box. And they'd lock you in, and they'd make you stay there for hours. You didn't have to stay overnight typically. I don't think I ever stayed in the box overnight, but they'd leave you in there 6, 8, 9 hours by yourself, cold, shivering, in a fucking in your undies in the middle of this cell. People would walk by, talk shit to you, talk about what they're going to do to you, all this type of stuff. So anyways, I got put in the box, and now I'm really sweating it because they're going to put you back on with the same people. See, it's not like nowadays. Nowadays, if you get into a fight with a guy in jail, or I imagine in juvie, they don't put you back on the deck with the same guy. You're not going to be together anymore, right? That's how it works, at least in adult institutions. They don't put you back with the same people. Well, in Juvenile back then, they didn't give a fuck. They put you right back with the same guy. So I had to think about the fact that I'm going to have to see this guy in 5, 6, 7 hours, and it's just going to kick off again. Now we're getting into the second third of this cigar, and I'm pairing it, by the way, with a Happy Belly and Immune System Pop Well cream soda, which is like a healthy cream soda. It's nice, but we're getting into the second third of this Padron, and it's really nice. Pretty consistent flavor. It might be a touch stronger as we get into the second third, but it's still, you know, a pepper. Not strong. It's not a crazy strong pepper, but it's there, you know. And if you do a retrohale, which is blowing the smoke through your nose, a little bit of a bite, a little bit of a peppery bite on the retrohale. Very nice. So I'm in the box, and I'm wondering, what the fuck am I going to do back on the deck? Something happened to me that day where I just said, fuck it. I literally said, fuck it after that day, because I was back on that deck, and sure enough, Karate was there, and I saw him pacing back and forth, and I knew that this kid was going to do something. I knew it, and everybody else knew it too. He has to. I literally stole off of him in the cafeteria. So I'm watching him pace back and forth, looking up at me, pacing back and forth. Other kids are kind of keeping an eye on shit because they want to see the shit kick off. Everybody wants to see a fight in jail. Everybody wants to see a fight in juvie. That's the entertainment. So they're all looking at the shit, looking at this guy, looking at me. I see some kids playing dominoes. Now, these bones were actual literal fucking dominoes. So I grabbed 4 of them when nobody was looking, right? Had 2 in my right hand, 2 in my left hand. And I just had my fist clenched, and I was just walking back and forth. And sure enough, Karate came up to me later that day and said, yo, what's up? What you want to do now? He didn't even try to snake me. He just tried to come up to me and talk shit. As soon as he did, I just started blasting his fucking ass. Beat the dog shit out of him. Staff came in again, pulled me up off him, put me back in the fucking box. But after that day, I never had any fucking problems with Karate again. He didn't want no fucking smoke. Nobody else did either. I had a stigma after that moment because I was the only white boy on the fucking deck, and they looked at me like I was a little psychopath because I started blasting everybody, because in my mind, I'm like, oh, okay, shit, this works. I can punch people and they'll leave me the fuck alone. So I think I snaked about 2 or 3 other kids after that moment for different reasons, people trying to talk some shit or try me or whatever it was. And that kind of like changed things for me. Not in necessarily a good way, because obviously the trajectory I went on after that moment was a shitload of trouble and heartache for my family and heartache for me and my loved ones, and just doing a lot of bad things to other people as well. But that was a pivotal moment in my childhood in Cleveland, Ohio, before we moved to Chicago, where just the shit changed for me, and I just stopped taking shit. Anyways, that's the story. That's the story about me and Karate, and a little glimpse into the life of Juvenile Detention back in the 90s. I appreciate you listening. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe, please. It's going to help grow this channel. I'm going to keep on, you know, smoking good cigars and telling you all really fun, interesting stories, hopefully. I got a lot of them, but I appreciate you listening. This cigar is great. Padron 6000. I didn't get all the way through it. I don't want to keep you here for an hour, but it's a great cigar. Highly recommend.